Welcome to the 16th season of the NitWits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Our panel includes Neil Riddell of the Altoona Mirror, Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com, Sports Director Casey Kantz of WTAJ Sports, and a special guest analyst each week. The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells and Reed, orthodontics for children and adults. By Pacifico's Bakery, genuine Italian bread and rolls for your tailgating needs. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue in Altoona, just ask rental. By the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By your rehab choice, Health South of Altoona, ask for us by name. By J&P Auto, home of the $1,000 push, pull, or tow. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday.
Alrighty, folks, welcome inside another edition of the NitWits. Casey Kantz alongside the Altoona Mirror's Neil Riddell, Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com. We welcome back former Nittany Lion Mike Irwin today. How you doing, Mike?
Thank you, Casey. It's good to be back.
Unfortunately, it is good to be back. Good to see you back. But unfortunately, we have to break down a pretty tough loss for Penn State. Very lopsided. One of the most lopsided losses in Penn State's history. A 63-14 setback to Ohio State. Let's just get some initial thoughts. This one got out of hand early, and Ohio State really never let up, Neil.
No, I mean, unfortunately, the college game is such that you have to apparently have style points to try to crack the BCS final or the Final Four next year. And this is what Penn State's going to be facing with Urban Meyer. This guy is taking no prisoners, and we can get into that a little bit. I thought there was a lack of class at times, but the overriding picture is Penn State has got to play a whole lot better, especially on defense, I thought.
Yeah, this was a case of the irresistible force meeting the movable object. I mean, Penn State got pushed around on offense, on defense. There were a couple good things. Bill Belton, I think, kind of established himself. But overall, there's really no way to paint that as anything positive whatsoever. I think you saw a team that's number 4 in the nation, was coming under some criticism, people, and they wanted to make a statement, and they made it in this game. There was no question who was the better team, and to me, there's really no question who the best team in the Big Ten is.
I think, Penn State was going out there with the idea that they're going to be able to run the ball against that Ohio State defense. And, I mean, they knew about Ohio State's offense, how good Ohio State's offense was. And I think that whole game could be a lot different if, Penn State was able to move the ball consistently and didn't make so many errors. I mean, the first drive kind of set the stage for that. When they moved right down the field, they didn't really have any problems with the Ohio State defense, and then they throw the interception, right away.
Yeah, that was big.
See, Mike, but what I would argue with that is that Ohio State had been really ripped apart by opposing passing games. The kid Aberderis from Wisconsin, the tight end from Iowa, not necessarily ripped apart, but these guys put up a lot of yards. So I think Penn State was going to have to be able to pass the ball to be able to win that game. And in their defense, you really do have to wonder how much the injury to Hackenberg set them back. I know Ferguson came in and played well overall. It wasn't going to make a difference in the game, but maybe that makes it a 25-point game as opposed to 40.
The horses were so out of the barn by that point.
Yeah. No, I'm not. All I'm saying is
even if Hackenberg was healthy at that point, I would have taken him out just to keep him standing.
Well, I think they were saying, no, Neil, that he was injured much earlier in the game than when he was actually taken out. Yeah. So, and my point is, would it have made some sort of difference? No, they weren't going to win that game. But would it have made some sort of difference if he were healthy the entire game?
Well, I think it would have kept it a lot closer. I mean, I think the idea of going in, if you watch some of the other teams that played Ohio State, they were able to move the ball against the Ohio State defense, and Penn State wasn't. So I'm saying if we had a little more ball control, the outcome of the game, not that it's going to change, that much. When you get beat 63-14, it's a little hard to justify you could beat that team.
Kind of what we were talking about. I think that's kind of maybe what concerns you a little bit is I don't, we all kind of went around the panel last week, and I think most of us had Ohio State winning, but it seemed like it could have been a winnable game, and the fact that it got out of hand so early.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most disappointing thing, if you're a fan, is watching that second quarter and the way the defense just imploded.
Yeah.
I mean, Ohio State's a really good team, but to have 4 long touchdown drives, those weren't, pick sixes, and those weren't, a fumble and scoring from 3 yards out. That was 4 long, sustained touchdown drives against that defense. And to me, as I look at that game, there were a lot of different disappointing things for Penn State, but the way that defense performed, especially in that second quarter, was the most troubling.
Well, I would agree with that, and I kind of agree with what Mike said at the beginning. To me, they were able to run the ball, and I don't think it was, it was a big play that they got intercepted in the end zone. I don't think it changes the end result, but it prolonged it. But the fact that the defense, and then the special teams after it's 28-0, Penn State scores to make it 28-7, and immediately 50-yard kickoff return. But I think we've seen a pattern now with this defense. And they've been lit up for 40 points 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah, averaging nearly 50 a game, opponents for the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, how many times are we seeing defensive backs looking at each other wondering of blown coverage? And I think they are playing more man-to-man this year. Obviously, they're a little confused by the system.
Well, I mean, everybody wants you to blitz, 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 and they did. I mean, look, there were plays there where they blitzed and they were getting burned by it. But the fact of the matter is, Ohio State just had too many weapons. I don't care what defense they were going to play in that game.
You
I don't
look
think
at
it was going to make a difference.
There's not too many teams that are going to be able to contain Braxton Miller. I mean, as much
And
as
he's as healthy as he's as healthy as he's been, Mike.
And Hyde is another outstanding running back.
Virtually
I
a
mean,
three-headed
those two
monster.
talents
Yeah,
are really
exactly.
tough. And I think Penn State was trying. Originally, they were playing loose on defensive back. Like back to what Neil was saying, the defense gave up a lot of points. I'm not sure they know what they wanted to do in that case. Whether they want to try to contain Miller but Miller ran outside, they ran inside. Yeah. I mean, they couldn't keep him in the pocket at all. I mean, he was outstanding. I mean, he's probably, I don't know if there's a better, two-dimensional quarterback in the country. I mean, he can do it all.
Was it me, or were there like 3 or 4 maybe guys on that Ohio State offense where you thought, wow, nobody on the Penn State defense is remotely as fast as these kids? Yeah. I mean, they were just boom, 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 moving around. But it was impressive.
Yeah, and you're starting to see a cumulative effect of injuries start to take their toll. Hull, I don't think, is still 100%. Carson got hurt. Now Hackenberg is hurt. And I don't think it bodes real well for the second half of the season.
We'll find out more about Christian Hackenberg on Tuesday, we assume. What about his game overall? Another couple big picks. The one early on was a big pick in this football game on Saturday night. Can he learn from experiences like this? You in a hostile environment like Ohio State?
I think this was his worst game, and he missed a couple people that were, the first interception when they were moving in. I mean, he should have thrown it more inside. And then the second interception to James, I mean, he made some mistakes. So I thought that was his worst game. I mean, to go out in a big stage in prime time and to perform like that.
But did it really surprise you, though? I mean, you're at night. Ohio State has played down at times, but when they're at night in prime time, they are the real deal. And I don't know that they're going to sneak into the BCS game, but I think they could challenge anybody. But I just think that the offense was going to struggle a little bit in that environment. I expected the defense to have to play.
I went into this game thinking that Ohio State wasn't nearly as good as some of these other teams. But you know what we saw? We saw a healthy Braxton Miller. That's as healthy as he's been. Hyde missed the first couple games with disciplinary issues. They pulled it all together for this game, and they wanted to make a statement, and they made a statement, unfortunately, for Penn State.
Still much more to come. It was a long day for everybody involved. We were talking about the Penn State defense is especially long for them. I'll break down what we saw from them Saturday night a little bit more in depth. Stay with us. You're watching the NitWits.
The NitWits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells and Reed, orthodontics for children and adults. By Pacifico's Bakery, genuine Italian bread and rolls for your tailgating needs. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue in Altoona, just ask rental.
I'm Deion Barnes from your Penn State Nittany Lions. You're watching the NitWits.
All right, welcome back. A tough one to take Saturday night in Columbus as the fourth-ranked team in the country had their way with Penn State. We knew what Braxton Miller brought to the table, guys. Carlos Hyde as well. We talked about these guys in the first block. That Buckeye offense pretty much went through that Penn State D. The D really didn't have a chance from early on, and it's kind of interesting because Braxton Miller's tough alone, and he's back healthy again, like Mark said. Carlos Hyde as well. I mean, it's virtually with what Braxton Miller can do with the arm and the legs. Throw Hyde in the mix. I mean, that's a three-headed monster, essentially, that Penn State just couldn't stop.
Well, you look, I mean, first of all, that Ohio State offensive line. I mean, if you look at it, they have 4 seniors in that interior 5, and they're all like 300 pounds. So those guys were blocking well. And I was just saying, I haven't seen Jones, hasn't shown up for the game yet. I don't know where he is. He had, like somebody was saying, 1 assist all day. And then the linebackers, to me, some of those outside linebackers just aren't getting it done on the outside. I mentioned that before, but I think Carson's pretty strong inside. But when they start sweeping the ends, I mean, those linebackers aren't reacting fast enough.
I think what you've seen is teams adjust to Penn State's strengths. Alanian had a great game the other day. Jones started out the season very strong. Those guys. Barnes had a really good year last year that he's not been able to translate over to this year. So some of the guys that they were really counting on, Obang had a tremendous game against Syracuse, but the level of play has been very uneven.
And I would say, in their defense, this is where I think the cumulative
effect. Pun intended.
Yeah, but I think the overall effect of the lack of bodies. So if somebody's not playing well, who are you going to replace them with? And I agree with you, Mike. The linebackers, I think as a whole, haven't played particularly well. What are you going to do? Who are you going to move in there to do something? I mean, the one guy who really has come in and given them some pop off the bench has been Zettel. And that's because Barnes isn't playing really well. But who else is coming in? You know, you've moved Amos back to corner, so now what do you do in the secondary if somebody isn't playing well?
That's true, and I think we have to all understand where they are. They go out to the horseshoe with 61 warm bodies as far as scholarships, but 63 points. I mean, I still don't think you could get your arms around that.
I'm not rationalizing it. All I'm saying is when things start to go haywire, what your answers are either to change what you're doing, which wasn't going to work against this team, or get somebody else in there, and you just don't have anybody to go in. If somebody blows a coverage, what are you going to do? Pull them? Who are you going to put in place of them?
Look at those numbers on your screen. 1899 you have to go back to find that amount of points, 64 being given up on a Penn State defense. That's crazy.
But the other thing, if you look at
that's before you were born, Mike.
Oh, I know. I mean, I read the paper today, and I couldn't believe it was that long ago because I know we did the same thing.
What paper did you read?
What other paper is there? That's right. What other paper is there besides the Altoona Mirror?
It was Parchment. He dug out the Duquesne Club and.
But you know, you have to. If you go back to '94, Penn State did the same thing.
1894?
No, 1994. 1994, Penn State beat Ohio State 63-14. So that just kind of what goes around comes around. But you know, again, Ohio State score is probably averaging 45 plus points a game anyway. So Penn State's facing a pretty good offensive team, and like we said, there's a lot of talent on that team. I don't think too many teams are going to stop them. I mean, they might get in a game. I mean, if they get to the playoffs, you know, later on. I mean, they might get in one of these Southeast Conference teams. Maybe they'll trade touchdowns back and forth. But I think there's very few teams that are going to play any better offense than what the Ohio State is playing.
All right, well, we'll step out and take another break. We'll talk some more about this game. Stay with us. You're watching the NitWits.
The NitWits are brought to you by the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By your rehab choice, Health South of Altoona. Ask for us by name. By J&P Auto, home of the $1,000 push, pull, or tow. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal.
I'm Matt Stankiewicz, and you're watching the NitWits.
whispers again.
There's Mike welcoming us back to the
You know,
Nitwits.
it's more entertaining between breaks.
It really is. Mike, stand by. Mike, stand by.
All right.
And there we go.
All right, we're ready to go now.
That.
Go ahead. It's back to you, Casey. Go ahead, do what you want to do.
That's
there.
why we love having you on, Mike. We really do. We're talking about this Penn State tough loss to Ohio State on Saturday night. Top of the show, we mentioned about the Urban Meyer, Bill O'Brien little thing. Is there a little bit of bad blood brewing there?
Well, Bill said after the game that they gave us some things to remember, some things that we'll remember. I thought there were some questionable moves, but you're calling timeout, you're up. We're used to watching Joe Paterno as far as the way that he managed certain games, and it's 35 seconds, it's 35-7. There's about 50 seconds left in the half, and Meyer was very aggressive in a 1-minute drill, called 2 timeouts, punched the score in. Said he didn't intentionally kick an onside kick, but it sure looked like it if you go to the videotape, because he didn't power kick it, that's for sure, if he didn't want to have a return. And then late in the game, the end of the third quarter, Penn State manages a first down, stop the press, and Meyer challenges it, gets it reversed. It's 49-7 at that point.
Yeah, that was the only thing that was really weak to me. I mean, listen, at the end of the first half, they have to work on that. They may encounter a situation, and if you can't stop them, that's on you. But the thing with when you're leading by 40, whatever it was at that point,
49-7.
to challenge a call, that's really Bush League. However, I will say this. If that's going to add a little bit more juice to this series, bring it on. I want more. I want more going back and forth and a little bit of not ugly bad blood, but you know what? Give guys something to play for in future games. I don't think there's enough of that rivalry type stuff between Penn State and other Big Ten teams.
I think before Penn State got into the Big Ten, they used to have Michigan and Ohio State. Now it seems like they're expanding, and these rivalries are good. I mean, it's really going to help Penn State. I mean, they have something to shoot for, next year, the year after. I mean, they took a pounding this year, but they'll remember. Hopefully, they'll remember next year. Go out there. And back to Urban Meyer. I mean, I've never been an Urban Meyer fan, although he's been very successful as a college coach. But I don't want to be negative. I want to be positive about it.
No question. The guy's won 20 in a row at 3 different places, and I'm not whining about it. I just think that it's a little questionable when you're up that far. But when you have a playoff, this is what this is what you're vulnerable to.
Quickly, guys, not a lot of bright spots, obviously, Saturday night, but one that we noticed, Billy Belton had a nice effort. I think it's safe to assume, especially after yet another Zach Zwinak fumble, that Belton is your top guy in the backfield now, Neil?
I would think, he went to Lynch. Lynch carried 11 times. So I would think he's going to get, I'm just not sure why. It has to be mental, with Zwinak. I thought Ferguson played well.
He did.
Yeah, and Allen Robinson did some good things. I mean, that's the other thing. If you want to complain about Ohio State running it up, I mean, you have your best player out there late in the game as well. But, listen, Belton has got to be the guy now. I love him as a player, but you can't lose.
Let me get back to the running back situation. I mean, I think, Lynch gives you a better chance of breaking a big one because I think he's a little bit quicker, than Belton. Belton gave you a solid performance. And Zwinak, I hate to count him out. I mean, I know it looked like there was some bad blood between O'Brien and Zwinak. Hopefully they can work it out because
O'Brien's sick of it. He's sick of fumbling.
But Zwinak gives you about 110% out there, so he's not intentionally trying to.
Obviously, but
he's upset as anybody that he fumbled. I mean, I think hopefully O'Brien.
I don't think he was upset as O'Brien. O'Brien.
Well, no, but I'm sure he's not taking it. I mean, he's upset himself, and the kid ran for over 1,000 yards last year, so I hate to give up on him, but so he's lost the ball a few times. Maybe you can work on some things there, but I don't think you throw him out, throw him away because.
No, I think that'll be a challenge for the staff to see how you're going to work him back into the mix. Mike, this is 8 fumbles. This is 8 fumbles going back to last year. So I mean, you have to figure that out.
Yeah, it was a bad fumble on Saturday night, I guess, but they held him out a whole game or a half a game last week.
Well, they had to hold their breath,
ago.
like you said after the game. I mean, they could be riding a 3-game losing streak right now, and one of the biggest reasons would have been the fumble by
sometimes,
Michigan.
but I mean,
first play of the second half, that was huge.
But I mean, if you have a lot of movement in your shoulders, you're running around. I mean, you get a chance of getting fumbled. There's always that chance.
The one.
I don't know. I mean,
Mike, he's a veteran player now. Listen, we could have made these excuses for him last year. He's a veteran player. He carried a ton last year. He has absolutely got to do a better job. That's what it boils down to. And if he can't,
you don't think he realizes that?
I do. I absolutely do. All I'm saying is that
it's become a mental thing now.
You feel bad for him.
Yeah,
but nobody's. He's put the team in in some tough
But
positions.
Belton's got to be the guy.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
he either Belton or Lynch, and Belton to me
But
is
is that the
bounce
way
back.
you treat Zwinnett?
Mike, how would you
screaming
feel
at
if
him?
you're running back? How would you feel if the guy ahead of you kept fumbling and you didn't get a chance?
Well, no, we had that issue when I was there. Not with me, but with the other.
Guys, we got to take a break. We're not going to have time for our final block. Penn State will try to put this loss behind them again, and they will welcome in Illinois to Beaver Stadium coming up this weekend. We'll talk about that next.
The NitWits are brought to you by the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday.
All right, welcome back to the NitWits. Penn State and Illinois set to, I guess you talk about rivalry. This one's starting to brew a little bit too. Neil, you're our Nitwit of the week. Why don't you pick
Thank
first?
you, Casey. I'm going to say Penn State 31, Illinois 17.
Mark.
I'll go 35-24. Penn State winning. Illinois is really struggling again.
Mike.
I wanted to say 36-20, Penn State.
I've got Penn State 40-18. With that, we are out of time. Thanks for watching the NitWits. We'll see you next week.
The NitWits have been brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells and Reed, orthodontics for children and adults. By Pacifico's Bakery, genuine Italian bread and rolls for your tailgating needs. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue in Altoona, just ask rental. By the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By your rehab choice, Health South of Altoona, ask for us by name. By J&P Auto, home of the $1,000 push, pull, or tow. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday. You can also see the NitWits on AltoonaMirror.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.